because it is now 1 o'clock. All right. Okay, save, and here we go. Okay, here we go. Good afternoon, and welcome to this final Sunday of February. It is amazing to me how quickly days go by, and it seems like just a few days ago I was saying the same thing again. Good afternoon, and I'm greeting you on behalf of Agape Renaissance Center, and so happy to have you tune in today. Today, just like all the other days, I want to tell you a little bit about Agape Renaissance Center's, Agape Renaissance Spiritual Center's purpose is to build oh my gosh, I'm like stumbling over things here. Our purpose is to establish an atmosphere that encourages each person to consciously and persistently build a more abundant life, exhibit unconditional love in every aspect of that life, and to love God without reservation. And so to that end, we share principles that help you see how you can change your life, how you can see the world differently, how you can think about what you think about in a way that helps you to reach that particular end. We do affirmations here, we do denials here, and we talk about the things, the tools that you can use to switch around how you see things. So normally when we are in a church setting, we do a number of things, one of which is to share an affirmation as well as an affirmative reading before we get into the meat of our discussion on any particular day. So we would normally have our own Valerie Bloom walk to the front of the room and ask you to take from your bulletin a little yellow card. And I pull from this particular deck, and then we do an affirmation from this deck. Now, affirmations, for those of you who have not heard of affirmations, they are statements that help us to transform our thinking and see the world in a different way. So this idea of talking about yourself, that I am presence that you are. What are you calling forth? What are you focusing in on? When you say that I am wealthy, healthy, and wise, it is as if you are proclaiming something to the universe. Even God said, let there be, and there was. And so you're calling forth something out of this universe that is responsive to you. We like to say that there is a spirit for good that is operating in this universe, and it is always saying yes to you. And so these affirmations that I'm sharing today are taken from some that we did in 2017. And I'll say them twice in case you want to say them along with me. And if not, I get that too. But here, just listen to them and let this minister to you. Here's the first one. I have a positive outlook on life, which demonstrates to everyone around me under any and all circumstances. Isn't that a wonderful thing to say? When I am out and about, people often ask me how I'm doing. And it's so funny because, for a while there, I always said wonderful. Then it was blessed. And then it was fabulous. And then it was awesome. Whatever that is your thing. Sometimes it reminds you to reset yourself. If you thought for a moment that you were not doing good, when somebody asked you how you're doing, it's a moment to speak your word and to call forth what you desire. So here it is again. I have a positive outlook on life, which I demonstrate to everyone around me under any and all circumstances. Ooh, life is good. Life is good. And I speak that over my life all the time. Here's the next one. I am divine presence expressing as compassion, sincerity, peace, and clarity. I know what I need to do and am divinely guided and supported in doing it. That's a long one, right? But here, let's break this down again. I am a divine presence expressing as compassion, sincerity, and clarity. Peace, right? Sincerity, peace, and clarity. And then it says, I know what to do and am divinely guided and supporting in doing it. That's so good. That's so good. Sometimes people forget that you always have that guidance available to you if you just ask for it. And then the next one. Ooh, this is warning me about something here. Okay, and then the next one. I choose to be centered in the one creative force, not on myself. I embody these words of truth, and all is well. That's good. Here, I'm going to say this again. I choose to be centered in the one creative force, not on myself. That's good. All right. And so to that end, we will, allow these to minister to you, see what it is that it says for you, and keep it going in that regard. Let's see. You guys, as I'm looking at my screen here, it looks as though the stream is stopped. And so let me reboot this. Let's make sure that this is working correctly. Okay. Okay. And so good. So I don't know if you heard that. Good morning, Ephraim. Yes. We've got some, I don't know what happened here, but for just a second there, it appeared that something interrupted the stream or the video stream. So we are back up. So I also read for you on a regular basis. Yes, thank you for waiting. On a regular basis, we do what we call the affirmative reading. And the affirmative reading we take from out of our Science of Mind magazine. We are coming to the end, like I said at the beginning, this is the last Sunday of the month. And next month we will start up under a new topic or a new author of these daily guides. This one for today is called Organizational Optimism. Organizational Optimism. And the first quote is taken from Napoleon Hill. He says, first comes thought, then organization of that thought into ideas and plans, then transformation of those plans into reality. The beginning, as you will observe, is your imagination. And from Ernest Holmes, Living Without Fear, he says, the spiritual universe is an intelligent organization, bespeaking a universal intelligence running through everything. Our own intelligence perceives this and the ultimate necessity. And when our intelligence perceives it as an ever-present fact, we are practicing science of mind. So here is what Reverend Raymond Anderson wrote about these two quotes that he selected. He says, do you realize you are an embodiment of the universal intelligence Holmes speaks of in the above quote? It is all there, which is why he says it runs through everything. There can be nothing other than it, meaning God. When any of us operate in a disorganized manner, when the organization around the planet operate in ways that are not beneficial to people or the planet, what are we invited to know and to do? What causes this apparent experience of disorganization or malorganization? Some aspects of the organization's mental equivalent, some aspect of our individual mental equivalents are aligned with and resonating with the opposite of the organization, the opposite of which is our highest and best. If we want better, healthier, more successful, more equitable experience, we must be organized in a manner aligned with what we desire. How do we do this, you ask? Begin by looking at your spiritual practices, which is everything you do. Are your practices optimizing your life experience, or are they simply forms of busy work that give expression to yourself and others that you are practicing? Get spiritually organized in your life, he says. Declutter the mundane busy work and develop healthier habits and routines. Declutter the old paradigms of an angry anthropomorphic God, and develop a new, more effective and intimate knowing of the source. And stay curious about the ways to maximize your joy and your life. So the affirmation that he uses is as CEO of my life, I organize my life in the most effective, optimized manner possible, and I reap the benefits of living in the flow of source. And so it is. You know, that brings me to an interesting idea or an interesting thought. Thank you for that, Ephraim. I know that that it is a bit off. It brings me to exactly what it was that I was talking about today. You know that we have now entered into the season that is called Lent. And during the Lenten season, this season is represented of the journey or the sojourn into the wilderness that Jesus took 40 days before he was supposed to go for his trials and eventual crucifixion. Jesus did this full knowing that there would be things that he needed to prepare himself for. And so he took to being alone in the desert to contemplate what it is that he needed to do and to build his spiritual musculature that is necessary for the walk that he is going to make. Now, during this time, I normally take a class that is a class out of California about the Lent season. And during each week of this class, we go through and we do the same types of exercises for ourselves. This idea of fasting and feasting upon certain ideas, of challenging ourselves and our own thinking so that we can realign or reorganize ourselves along with our intended purpose. So as we go through this work, it was really interesting because not only has this idea of who is your spiritual teacher come up within the class, it has been something that I actually just heard today and something that has come back to revisit me since then. And for many of us, we have many spiritual teachers that we go through. Many people who we will talk to and confer with or listen to or perhaps read on a regular basis. What feeds your soul? A lot of times what we do is we mindlessly watch, whether it's television or the news or we read things that don't necessarily build us up or sustain the type of thinking that we desire. Just this morning, as I watched this segment, they talked about the number one killer of of youth, teenagers in America, not just black teenagers, but the number one killer of teenagers in America is gun violence. And it's even, while it may be one thing in the larger community, it's even greater when it comes down to the black community. And this would have many trying to figure out what it is within our community that we're dealing with. Is there some type of resident evil? Is there something that is going on that we could do outside of this idea that it is the guns that are killing people and not necessarily people killing people? And so as I listened to the report, it was really interesting because for so many, it is this idea that there is something that needs to be done. And while I admit that there is something to be done, there is also that thing that I hear in my head that talks about this chicken comes home to roost type of idea. Not just that things have happened in the past, but things that happen in the past that have not been resolved will continue to happen. So when we start to look at the things that are confronting our community, it is not enough for us to just point the finger outward and say what somebody else ought to do, but really to turn and look at ourselves and ask the question, what is there for me to do? And this is one of the things that I am constantly aware of and asking myself. Because what I know is that a lot of times there are people who act out things and they don't exactly know, they're unconscious about the reasons why they're acting in a particular way or the things that prompt them to act in the way that they do. Let me switch to a different analogy because I always love to illustrate things in a different way. We all have refrigerators in our home. And when you have something in your refrigerator, say for instance that you have not used in the time allotted, or you've just forgotten that it's in there. After a while, it will start to smell. It'll start to smell as a cue to tell you that it is time to throw this out, that it is past its prime, that it's no longer good, and that it is out. Now, a lot of times it is not present of mind, and sometimes we can smell the evidence of it there, but we haven't been able to find exactly what it is. This happens whether we're talking about a refrigerator or something that is left in a fruit or vegetable bin or out in nature. And trust me, I get the fact that you are part of nature. We are not separate from it. But this is the way in which our attention is grabbed so we can tell that something is amiss. Now, unfortunately, in our community, we can look at what is happening and we can tell that there is something wrong by what's going on. And to oversimplify it and just say that the cause is the availability of this without recognizing that there is something that is seeking attention and resolution in our community would be for us to misidentify the problem. There is something wrong, and until and unless we address what is wrong, it will continue to fester and grow. Now, it's really interesting because a lot of times what we have seen is that we look away from these things. We don't give them the attention that they that they need or that is called for. And because we continuously misidentify it, what we do is we build more prisons, or we hire more police officers, or we pull out our cameras thinking that that gets at solving the issue, and it never does. You guys, there is something that Martin Luther King spoke about that is deep down in our souls that is begging to be resolved. And if I simply told you that to change your thinking, you can change your life, if I simply just put that little bandage on there without telling you that there is something bigger that we need to do, I would also be remiss. And so what needs to happen is a revolution happens. And when we talk about this thing of a revolution, what does that for our community look like? There is an ancient African proverb that I had read that said that when youth are not incorporated or enculturated into the community, they will burn it down into the village, is what it says. When they are not embraced or not brought into the village, they will burn that village down just to feel its warmth. You guys, this is a call to us as we see what is happening with our youth. This is a call to us to turn from the pointing the finger at the problem to then taking up and trying to figure out how it is that we can address and engage the problem. And a lot of times what happens is we think that it's not ours to do. But here, let me put it in a different vernacular. Sometimes the healing that needs to happen is not necessarily with what we see playing out on the street, but rather it needs to happen prior to that. I love how many teachings tell us that we can heal, and we can heal this moment, in this moment, and heal retroactively the things that have come before and those that will come in the future. By healing the present, we heal both the past and the future. Let me say that again. By healing in the present, we heal both the past as well as the future. I love that concept. And a lot of times what we do is people will think that it's not ours to do. But wonder if we looked at our youth and realized that the ways in which they are acting out is based on the things that have happened even before they were born. People are come into this world angry about things that they don't even understand. They're angry and they carry around these hostilities and these different feelings and don't understand all the time why they are there. And so we have to be about the business of not only giving voice to it and talking about it, but how do we heal that in this moment? One of the things that, when I talked to Dr. Brown, he talked a lot about this thing of what we as a community can do as far as this healing work is concerned. And so one of the things that we have this notion about is that we don't have a connection to what has happened before. But if we recognize that not only in this moment that we are still connected and still one with it, but we absolutely have the power to make the correction right here and right now. So when I am thinking about this comprehensive healing and this reawakening, what lays unacknowledged we cannot heal. So it's one of the things that Dr. Brown shared with me was this concept of we can throw all the beautiful paint that we want to over a situation, but unless and until we address the situation, it will not be healed. It doesn't get healed by just just by saying, oh, making a prayer and saying, oh, let this be healed. But rather we've got to like excavate, dig up that area, whatever it is that is poisoning the system. We have to then figure out how to bring it up to the surface so that we can then allow it. If you're talking from the perspective of a medical doctor, he talked about this idea that you had to sometimes, if you have an abscess, you've got to drain the abscess, because wanting something to heal that is full of pus, that is full of anger, that is full of hatred, that is full of all these things, is to be putting your efforts or putting a whole lot of effort into something that we haven't even cleaned up yet. And so this idea of how do we then clean out the toxic parts so that we can get the healing to begin to happen. So part of what needs to happen is to even address our own anger, whether we're parents or grandparents or aunts and uncles or whatever. We have to address our own place of anger. It's that healing process. I've got to talk about what's happened to me. I've got to bear witness to what I've been through. I watched a funny movie yesterday. This movie was called There's a Ghost or something like that in the house. Or We Have a Ghost. I don't exactly remember what the title of it was, but it's a movie that was on Netflix. And as I clicked into it, I just figured I was going to watch it as I was cooking, without having the intention of this movie saying anything serious. But it was about a family that moved into a house that was haunted by a ghost. And this ghost, the son that was troubled in the house, it was as if he started to recognize that this ghost must have been stuck there for a reason. And not only did he seek to heal the ghost, but through healing this ghost, he also healed his own life and then healed that of his family. You guys, we can't, there is a part of us that needs to recognize the pain and the atrocities that have gone on in our community. And until we give voice to that, we continue to try to, to throw fuel on the fire, as it may have been called at one time. And so there is work that needs to be done. And when we heal ourselves, we heal the past as well as the future. Can you imagine what it's like to then just go and witness or talk to younger people about the things that you've gone through? To try to figure out, how do I take the pain out? Sometimes things just need to be acknowledged in order to be released. And if we don't do that, then we are just kind of throwing something on something that is already just, beyond what it needs to happen. So through this, we have got to figure out what it is. If it's in your refrigerator, you've got to find that thing and pull it out, rather than just thinking that at some point it'll stop smelling. If it's in nature, we've got to find it and pull it out. You guys, we are so busy trying to sweep everything under the carpet that we fail to do the necessary work that we need to do so that there is a healing in our community. These things did not come out of nowhere, and they will not disappear by our ignoring it or locking it up. In the Bible, there was this when God said this idea that you can go and bury something and it be buried and forgotten. It's not buried and forgotten. It's still there. And in the Bible, there was a story. God said, I can hear his blood calling out from the soil. You guys, there is this call that is going out that needs to be resolved. And the more that we keep pulling things over it, if we keep trying to cover it up, we will never have this resolution that is necessary. We've got to do more than make some symbolic moves. The symbolic moves without substance keeps it the same way it's always been. At a certain point, it's necessary for us to talk about and understand the pain that has been experienced by those who have come before us. We need an outlet. We need expression. That's one of the reasons why confession is so important. During this time of Lent, we normally call this a period where we talk about let's eliminate negative thinking. But to eliminate negative thinking without doing the necessary healing work around it, if we're just saying, oh, I'm not going to talk about it anymore, it doesn't cause resolution. And sometimes it is through the communication that the resolution actually happens. If we never speak of the things, just like a wound, you've got to bring it up to the air so that it can begin to heal. Because if you keep it covered over, it doesn't heal. If you keep ignoring it, it doesn't have those chances to heal. Now, let me switch with this analogy for just a second, because I want to talk about it. If we're talking about current events, there are so many people throughout the state of Ohio, as well as Pennsylvania, that are still very upset about, and rightly so, the chemical spill that happened when the trains derailed. And when they decided that one of the ways that they had to deal with this was to have a controlled burn. The controlled burn was so that it didn't end up exploding. And if it exploded, they thought that it would be far worse. The damage that would be done would be far worse. And so they wanted to do what is called a controlled burn. You guys, in our community, we have something that is spewing toxicity in the air. And at a certain point, maybe what we need to do is have a controlled burn as well. A controlled burn in the sense that without bringing this stuff up, without, trying to help the process, it will just explode. Who was it? He asked what happens to a dream deferred. And when we start to ask these questions about what happens to our community, it's the explosion that we don't want anymore. And so without us having a way of healing that, what we will continue to get is these pop-ups everywhere. It is time for us to decide something different. So I for some reason, there was let me circle for a second. When I talked about these ideas of having a spiritual teacher, one of not only am I learning so much from Dr. Brown, but there is a man by the name of Bayo Akomolafe, who is an amazing teacher, amazing mind. And he often speaks in, because he is Nigerian, or is he Ghanaian? But he often speaks in terms of telling stories. And one of the stories that he told was a story that was written by Ola Rotimi, who wrote a play called The Gods Are Not to Blame. The Gods Are Not to Blame. And in this particular story, it was really interesting because he talked about a king and a queen who ruled over particular land. And when the king had his son Adewale, he was told by a seer that this son, and this is like some of the Greek tales that you might have heard, but he was told by a seer that his son Adewale would not only kill him, but he would then, after killing him, would marry his wife, the queen, and they would rule and have children. And so the king, upset at this proclamation, this this tale by the seer, upset about it, him and his wife kind of ruminated over it, talked about it, and talked about how everything that they had worked for would be in peril if this were to happen. And so as they talked about this, the king put out a call and asked one of the messengers to take this baby, this child, and take it to a place called the Evil Grove, and asked him to destroy this child, asked him to kill the child there, because he did not want this calamity to come upon his kingdom. And so on the way, as you can imagine, this messenger is going and charged with the task of killing a baby. His heart, it just didn't sit well with his soul. And so along the path, in order to go back home, he needed to get rid of this child. And he came upon a hunter, and he gave the child to the hunter. And he went back thinking that nobody would be the wiser for what he had done. And so life went on. Life went on. This child grew, and he grew with these parents who never really told him how they came upon him. He just assumed that this was his mother and father. And so as the story goes on, the king and the queen, they lived their life, and and this child, they thought that they had put to death. Anyway, one day, this child, Adewale, as he came of age, he kept thinking to himself, there's got to be more than this. And his desire to be recognized, his desire to make a difference and to have an impact on the world got the best of him. And he ended up running away from this hunter and his wife. He had learned so much about hunting and nature and all of these things. He had learned from this surrogate father that he had, that he just felt like something was missing, and he wanted to go out and make his mark. And so he goes and he heads towards this village, this place where he was from, this kingdom and land that had exiled him. And on his way there, he runs across a farmer, and him and this farmer had words, and he ended up killing the farmer. And then he goes into the city, and he built a reputation for himself as being a great warrior, of being able to fight in battle and to help out. And of course, his name, he began to be celebrated all over the place, and he was winning victory after victory on behalf of this particular kingdom. And as a reward, he was finally crowned king because of his ability, his physical prowessness, which was common in that day. The person who was the strongest or who was the most intelligent rose to the level of kingship. And as king, Adewale ended up marrying the queen. And they fathered children. He fathered children with her. And when eventually their land came into want and famine set in, and things started to not, the crops were dying and things were going bad, they called once again for the seer to see what it was that had possibly happened that could have angered the heavens, and wanted to know what it was that was wrong. And it wasn't until that moment that Adewale found out about his own past, that the farmer that he killed was in fact his father, and that the mother, the woman that he had married, was in fact his mother. And the children that he had fathered were in fact his siblings now. And so this was so distraught. It caused so much distraught in Adewale that the way that the story goes is that he took his children and he left. He took his children and he no longer interacted with anyone, not the village people, not anyone. He went off into obscurity to live his life out in privacy, without giving people the awareness of the resolution of the story. He just went away. When we think about our community and we think about the things that are happening in our community, a lot of times the things that we send away, we think they are gone, that they are dead, that baby that was sent into exile, that baby that was sent to be killed, we think that because we don't hear from it or see it, that it is not there waiting, laying in wait to come back and rear its head and do exactly what is promised. You guys, unless we make resolution, unless we have a comprehensive healing, a reawakening, the things that we have tried to bury will come back to haunt us. They are already. And so we have to begin to look at the things that we are doing, the things that we have done, and then figure out how to resolve them so that we are not contributing to the poison that is already there. Wonder if the parent, the king and the queen, had made a different decision, right? Maybe it was this knowing that this son would kill his father and marry his mother. Maybe that was in part the problem. We have this idea that, if we look into the future to see that somehow we can fix what it is that we see. There is something powerful about learning how to live in the moment and listen to that still small voice that is within. Had they not sent him away, would this have even happened? Remember the African proverb that says that if we don't enculturate them into the village, then they will burn the village down to feel its warmth. Wonder if what we do is instead of exiling people, that we bring them in and begin to minister to them in a different way. You guys, sometimes this idea of playing God ourselves creates the enemies that we see. Maybe it's time that we learn how to come and come in an honest way so we can show up. We can ask, what is it that I'm to see here? What is it that I'm to do here? Instead of thinking that somehow I can change things just by burying them, by ignoring them, by pretending as if they don't exist. Oh, when I think about some of the things that we've been taught or some of the things that we've been heard, there is a part of me that just, I'm always saying, trust the process. Trust the process. And when we learn how to just trust, what we will see is that we are guided in that self-same moment as to what we're to do. You guys, you have this right at your fingertips. The kingdom of God, the kingdom is right where you are. It's not someplace else. You don't have to call a seer. Sometimes what you have to do is simply quiet your own mind and turn within. What would love guide you to do? What would it direct you to do? We don't know. We don't know the trajectory of our own children's lives. We don't know any of this. But what we can do is in the moment show up. We can show up as love. We can show up as forgiveness. We can show up as an example. We can keep showing up in ways that teaches them something different so that they don't have to end up burning the things down in order to feel its warmth. Oh yeah, I don't know who this is for, but I know that, as I think about how all of this works together, it gives us a powerful message. Not to make sure that that the child was killed. If that was what you got out of it, then you missed the point. We have got to figure out what it means to love. How do we give the love that we desire to receive? And sometimes that is through just the act of showing up. This is where I stumbled at before. This is where I made a wrong decision. This is where I made a wrong turn. This is what happened when I did this. This sharing is powerful. When we learn how to do it in a way that feeds our village, that feeds the people that we are around, you guys, we will be amazed at what happens. One of the things that I also heard this past week was this idea about, when they were talking about trauma and what is trauma. Trauma is what is left over when we don't have an empathetic other to help us process. We forget how important the connection is in our community. We forget how important it is for us to just reach out and connect and love somebody else, how to bear witness to their pain, how to help process this. You guys, we are social beings. We are social creatures. And as we look out at nature, we see example after example. Now, I will tell you, I have learned through my experience that not all of us are able to receive what it is that we desire. And we've also got to be conscious and aware of that when it's us that is blocking this very thing. I used to work in college with people who had some type of mental disability. And one of the things that it would be is while at the same time they wanted love, they also hit you if you got too close. They beat you up when you tried to do something. And it wasn't as if, they didn't want it, but there was something in them that also rejected it. We've got to know when it is us that stands in the way of receiving the love, the affection, the attention that we desire for ourselves. And so I hope that and at a certain point we can look at and do this introspective work, especially right now during Lent, to do the introspective work necessary to understand when there is some ghost that is in our own house, that's causing things to fall apart and not be the way that we desire them to be. Pray about it, think about it, and then do something about it. You guys, I am so honored to be able to talk to you today. I thank you for your comments, Walker, Ephraim. Thank you for all of that. And I'm here every single day, Monday through Saturday. And I appreciate your time, your attention. I appreciate all the ways in which you support this ministry. Thank you for that. But this is not just entertainment. And I know you know that, but how do I see this in my life? How do I look at the things that I'm experiencing or that I'm going through or dealing with and see the relevance of the message within the context of my life and then do something about it? We all have something to offer. I mean, just, you don't even know what a blessing you are until, you actually just extend it. Yeah, it just, it's amazing. So let that minister to you and see what it is that you can do. Sometimes it's just telling your story. Sometimes it is just connecting, just being open to the possibility. Yeah. Anyway, so thank you for being here. I am blessing you. I am blessing your life, your path, knowing that all things are working for your highest and best good. Whatever it is, whenever it is always available to you. Just simply by moving forward into it. Part of this walk of faith is not just the lip service that we play, but the action that we take with our feet and our movements. We can sit there and pray about money, but and then sit there and wait. But don't wait. In the act of pouring, in the act of moving, what it is that you desire comes to you. You just gotta, speak your word and keep moving forward. So the light of God surrounds you. The love of God enfolds you. The power of God protects you. The presence of God watches over you. Wherever you are, God is, and all is well. I bless you. I bless your life. Thank you for your continued support. And I will see you same time next week, right here. Blessings, blessings, blessings to you. Bye-bye. As soon as I find my little button.